Good morning. This is Mike Hull, and thank you everybody for coming this morning. Today's webinar will be on lean transformation at Rochester Gauges and how that's supported by Dynamics AX. Just go through some introductions real quickly here. We will be joined shortly by Bill Battershell, who's CFO of Rochester Gauges. I am on right now with Charlotte McCormick, and Charlotte is senior consultant here at eBECS, and she's essentially the eBECS lean architect. So she's responsible not only to help deploy AX at customers, but she's also responsible for some of the functional build-outs that we have in terms of lean extensions. And I'm General Manager for North America for eBECS. I'm Mike Hull. You can see my information there, by the way, and I will circle back with you within a week or so just to check on any interest that you may have in pursuing the conversation any further. And we could arrange a discovery as well as a very thorough demo of anything that you do specifically in terms of lean manufacturing. So the agenda for today will be that we'll have a very short AX and eBECS overview. We'll jump after that into the Rochester Gauges story. But what we'll be doing is we'll be having Bill tell a little bit of his story about Rochester Gauges, talking a little bit about some of the things that he's done. And Charlotte will jump into a demonstration of that material, or those issues, and then we'll do a Q&A. So what I'll do is I'll open the floor after Charlotte's demonstration, and if you have questions for either Bill or Charlotte at that point, you can ask them. And then what we'll do is we'll go back to Bill. He'll tell us a little bit more of the story. We'll do a little bit more demonstration, and then again, we'll have a little bit of Q&A at the end of that, and we'll have really basically 3 rounds of that, and then we'll kind of wrap it up. So that is our agenda. One thing that we do want to stress during this whole conversation, and this is the way we look at life, is that lean manufacturing process support in Dynamics AX does not cause lean transformation. We don't want to get that skewed at all. It doesn't create it. Really, the software comes along after the transformation takes place, after the manufacturing processes have changed to lean processes. And at that point, the question ends up being, does the ERP solution that you have really support those Kanban strategies, the planning, the scheduling, et cetera, that we're going to be talking about today? So the Dynamics AX product does not create transformation. It's really about 5% of the whole picture. But it's very important, because the question is does your business system actually support the lean journey you're on? Because you really are betting the farm on that kind of thinking, and it would be very helpful if your ERP or business system actually did support that. I'll talk a little bit about Dynamics AX. We're not going to go through this, obviously. The graphic basically is there to show you that it's a very robust system. All of the commonly assumed areas of functionality that should be in an ERP solution are within Dynamics AX. I'm hoping that what you see here, kind of communicates that pretty clearly to you. What we'll be looking at today is strictly the lean process support that's inside of AX. And each of these little rectangles represents some functional component of AX that supports something very specific in lean manufacturing processes. We will not touch on every one of these rectangles today, so we're going to be touching on a minimal number of those. Like I mentioned to you before, what we will do is circle back with you, and if you'd like to go into any of these further, specific to what you're doing in your manufacturing world, we'll have a little discovery session with you to find out what that is, and we'll come back and show you just what your business needs to see. But point being on this graphic that we're going to show you a small portion of a very large build-out of functionality.
I've been with Rochester Gauges for about the last 2 years, and we're right in the process now of upgrading our AX software to go to the latest release, which is called AX 2012. And the reason that I'm in charge of this is I probably installed and implemented about every software system out there, SAP, Lawson, J.D. Edwards, all of them. But let me kind of tell you how lean came into Rochester Gauges and who Rochester Gauges is. We are a manufacturing company. We make gauges. Those gauges go out to very large customers like Caterpillar and John Deere. They go to a variety of propane customers. We've been doing this for about the last 75 years. In about 2000, even the concept of lean was totally unknown to Rochester Gauges until about 2005, when Rochester Gauges hired a lean guru. His name was Brad Hoffman. And Brad Hoffman is the one that brought lean into Rochester Gauges. Brad started in about 2005. Shortly after he started, the company decided to get off of its old legacy software and transferred over and put in AX4. That installation of AX4, there was no thought of lean in that. Brad had just come here. The company didn't really know what lean was, so we just put in AX4 without any lean. After we installed that software, then we went through about 27 major Kaizen events out in the factory. So we totally reorganized our factory. We got done with that took place over the course of a couple of years. And we got done with relaying about 80% of the factory out. Now, what you heard before is absolutely true. When we came to the point that we had a factory now that was running sort of on lean, but we had a software package that didn't support lean at all, and we're having a big problem trying to really support the lean process without the software installed. What we did, at the same time, we were faced with a competition that was coming in and was challenging our market share at one of our market segments. And the way they were challenging us is they could get their product to market in half the time that we could. So we decided we needed to do something different, and we needed the software help to do it. Back then, we decided to take an old software package from eBECS and install it and put it on that line where we were being challenged by our competitor. So that was about 1.5 years ago, almost 2 years ago, that we went through that process with eBECS. We brought our line up, and what we're going to talk about today is what happened when we brought that line up. But let me caution you again, what you heard in the beginning of this. You have to have lean installed in your factory, in your processes in your factory. Then bring the software up. If people think that they're going to become lean by just installing software, that will not work. You have to be a lean company. That does not mean that you have to have embraced all aspects of lean, but there are fundamental aspects that you need to embrace in order to let the software work. So we went out and we brought this eBECS software in with eBECS helping us and installed it. And then let's talk about what happened when we did that. What the basic problem that we were having was our business challenge from that customer. And we basically needed to cut our lead time from 8 weeks, which has been our lead time for the last 75 years, down to 4 weeks. And the reason that we took this eBECS software was to allow us to be able to do that. And the eBECS software allowed us to do several things that got us to this even under 4 weeks. One of the biggest things that it did is it allows our customer service representatives, when they take orders, to be able to see into the factory floor and see into the material availability. What used to happen before is the customer service would take an order, throw it over the wall to manufacturing. Sometime in the next 8 weeks, manufacturing would put that onto their schedule, go to manufacture it. Maybe they have the material, maybe they don't have the material, and so it was causing our on-time delivery to suffer because we would put it into the schedule shortly before it was due to be shipped, and we may not even have the material or the sub-assemblies in place in order to be able to ship that product. So the first big benefit that we got out of this product was the ability of customer service to see into the manufacturing process. Let me explain to you just a little bit, then I'll hand it over to Charlotte. What customer service does now, compared to what it used to do before, is it takes the order. It can then go out and look at the schedule and see two things. Do we have the material in place to build that order? And do we have this time slot in our schedule to build that order? What we did when we did this and realigned our factory to be able to support this was our lead times did drop from 8 weeks to 4 weeks. In truth, they dropped down to under 2 weeks. And I'll let Charlotte take you through there and explain to you how that works.
All right, great. Thanks, Bill. So what I'm going to show you is, you can kind of see it on the screen. I want to take you through the sales event Kanban process in AX 2012, which is part of what really drove customer service and production to fall together as one unit at Rochester. So we're going to go through entering an order in AX straight from the customer. I'm going to show you a couple options for calculating the available date based on capacity and material, just like Bill said. And then that's basically going to schedule both the top level and the bottom levels for production to produce against that customer date. So let's take a step into AX. Just make sure you guys can see AX. So this is Microsoft Dynamics AX 2012. What we're looking at here is the sales order screen. And what we're going to do is we're just going to add a line to a sales order. We're acting like a customer service rep. So as a customer service representative, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to take a customer order. So we're going to order a part. We'll order 10 of them. And as soon as I save this line, AX can do a couple things. What you see here is it's telling me that the customer has requested that they would like to have their goods shipped on Thursday. AX is telling me no, that's not possible. The earliest I can give it to you is Friday. So I'm going to go ahead and update that confirmed ship date. And there are a couple options to how you can calculate this available date. The first one that we've looked at is something called CTP in AX 2012. And at eBECS we've actually done a lot of work around the standard CTP in Microsoft. But the premise of it is we are using what's called an explosion to calculate if we have material, if we have enough material, if we don't have material, when we're going to get the material in. And then we're doing a capacity check to see if we've got the material, can we actually make it. So as soon as I've saved that line and it gave me an available date, what I've got, I'm going to take a look at the pegging tree, is I've got a Kanban actually scheduled on the assembly work cell to hit that date that the customer wants. And it's not only scheduled my final assembly cell, but in this scenario it's also scheduled my sub-assembly and any of the parts that I need pulled to order. And we'll go through this in some of the later scenarios. So this is great because just like Bill said, the first thing we're doing is we're connecting sales order entry to the shop floor directly. And by saving that line in this scenario, it has automatically planned that for a realistic date. So let's take a look at what we see in terms of capacity on that top level cell. So what you're looking at here is called the Kanban schedule board. And I'm looking at that assembly top cell, and what I can see is a couple things. First of all, Thursday, which is when the customer wanted originally to have their goods made and shipped, is completely full. We've consumed 300 drumbeat of 300 available for that work cell. But Friday is not full. And if you actually look here, we have scheduled our job onto the work cell for Friday. And if I take a look here, again, I have that view into the entire pegging tree. And the pegging tree just represents everything that has to do with that sales order. And if I wanted to take a look, again, as a planner, as the work cell supervisor, I can get straight back to that sales order. So we're driving manufacturing based on that sales order. So another way that Bill kind of alluded to that you can start to get a realistic date is to actually take a look at the schedule yourself. So we're going to go back into this sales order. And I'm going to order one more item. And we'll order 20 of that item. So when I save this line, we haven't scheduled, we haven't calculated a date at all. What the customer service rep could do is either talk to a planner, go directly to that schedule. So I'm going to go back to my Kanban schedule board for my top level assembly cell. And what you see here is a Kanban that's waiting to be planned for that sales order. And you can come and quickly see the slots you have available. So I can see I have a lot of space on Friday, and I could literally come and drag this sales order into Friday. And if I wanted to, I could schedule all the lower levels by planning the entire pegging tree around this date. One of the most powerful things is that we're connecting customer service. We're getting the customer delivery date correct up front. And what you'll see throughout as we go through this is we also get status updates to customer service as we start producing against these event Kanbans, because we're producing directly to a sales order. So what I'm going to do, Bill, is we're going to go ahead and hand it back over to you. And if we have questions at this point, feel free to ask Bill or myself any questions you've got.
While we're on this topic, I cannot emphasize enough the power that this gave our company. We used to expedite product. We had premium freight shipments. All of that is gone for the line that we brought up, because customer service can actually go back to a customer and give them a date that we can actually ship the product with high reliability that we could ship it. And customers call in that need a date sooner than even the 4 weeks that we quote. We're able to do that. And the result of this was our customers overwhelmingly came in and just loved what we were doing and can hardly wait until we can get our whole factory set up to where we could do this with all of our products. This is very, very powerful. Okay, I'll go on to the next thing that was also very powerful for us. One of the problems that we have is we not only do final assembly, we do sub-assembly products that go into the final assembly. And part of the problem that we were having on the old system is we would get our final assembly scheduled and then find out on the day that the parts that are delivered to the line that the sub-assemblies haven't been built. So one of the powerful features of this is the ability to schedule the final assembly, and it backward schedules your sub-assembly, so your final assembly line is not waiting around for the sub-assemblies to come to them. And we did that through the introduction of Kanbans, and that's something that you would have to do on your factory floor to get this to work correctly, is set those Kanban levels up, be able to get the Kanbans to flow from your sub-assemblies over into your final assemblies, and then we installed a system of water spiders that would then take and move that product on an hourly basis from the sub-assembly cells into the final assembly cells.
In AX 2012, what Rochester did was they implemented various Kanban strategies, various make-to-order strategies throughout their shop floor. In AX 2012, we have a pretty robust Kanban management system within the software itself. And what you see on the screen are kind of all the possibilities that are there to support that type of lean thinking on the floor, those types of Kanban strategies. So what we've got, if you look to the left, are the different types of Kanbans. So for example, if a bin is empty or if you have a signal to do something, you could make something to replenish that signal. You could move something to replenish that signal. That's very common from things like the stock room to the line side, from a warehouse to a warehouse. Or you could purchase in something to replenish that signal, and that purchase would come straight from the vendor. And if you look from left to right, what we call replenishment strategies, what we're trying to do is cover the gamut of supporting lean processes. So from the far left in the make to stock arena, we have what's called fixed Kanbans. And that's your typical 2 or 3 bin system where you have a certain quantity per bin, and it's literally empty, full, empty, full. Very common. This is part of what Rochester did for their more common components, so that they're constantly working towards pull and lower level subassemblies where they've got their common parts sitting on the line side, and it's just an empty, full process. If you look at the far right in the make-to-order scenario, we have a variety of event Kanbans. And that's what you saw when I entered a sales order. And the premise of that is do nothing in AX until an event tells you to do something. And that event could be a sales order. It could be an upper-level Kanban that needs to be produced. It could be a production order, or it could be a signal for more stock that needs to be there based on a minimum on hand. And this is really powerful, and it's a lot of what we'll see next, because as the sales order event happens, that's what's driving production on the top level, and it's also driving production on the subassembly level. And this can be mixed and matched, obviously, throughout your plant with different strategies based on certain components. So in our scenario, what we've got now, I've entered a sales order, and it's loaded the assembly top-level final assembly cell based on a production sales event Kanban. The event was the sales order. And the next level down, we've got, again, another event Kanban. So as soon as I entered that sales order, it loaded both the assembly and the subassembly feeder cell, all just based on that one event. And what I've also got are some components that are being supplied to the line side, one via a fixed Kanban, so think of your 2-bin system for common components, and one via an event Kanban, which is more like your stranger components that you don't want to stock at the line side because you don't have space, you're not using it that frequently, etc. Okay, so I'm going to go back into AX, and we're going to start to make this scenario. And one of the things that I want to tell you about in AX 2012 is the concept of a production flow. So what you see here on the screen, where we've got some process activities, we're making a subassembly, we're making an assembly, we're pulling components, we're moving things. These are actually mapped in AX in what's called a production flow. And this is what drives all of our Kanbans, this is what drives all of production, and it's mapped in AX, and it can be time-phased. So as you start to improve these processes, you could change that directly in AX. Maybe it doesn't take effect until a month from now, but it's a pretty powerful tool, and it's what's driving the software to match your shop floor. Okay, so I'm going to go all the way back to that original sales order that we entered. We're going to take a look at the pegging tree again. Okay, so here's our very top level event Kanban that's loaded the assembly work cell. If I take a step down through the BOM, I now have a subassembly that has loaded onto the work cell Rochester 4, and this is waiting to be made. I can see that by the job status. So as we start to make this, customer service could immediately see, okay, my feeder cell is, they've started production, they started it here, it's going to come out on this day. What we've also got is another event Kanban, and this is a different one. This is the transfer. So what I can see is I have a transfer for my component, LE component 1, and it hasn't been executed yet. So we don't have materials for either our subassembly or our pull-to-order component at our final assembly yet. So the material is not there. Let's go ahead and start producing in AX against these signals. So the first place I'm going to go is to our subassembly work cell. And what you're looking at is called the Kanban board for process jobs. And this is a board that you could literally put in front of a work cell to show exactly what needs to be produced, when it needs to be produced, and again, if I have materials to produce it. So here's our subassembly work cell, and here is our subassembly component that needs to be made. I can tell that I have the materials here because I have a supply status of green and happy. And I could literally come into this board, I could start it, but for now, for the simplicity's sake, I'm just going to go ahead and complete this. And what completing has done, it's saying, okay, my production is complete, I have consumed the material in AX for this, and I have filled my Kanban for the next level up, and I actually could look and see that I've got that component on hand now, all with one click of a button. Now there are several other options you could use. For example, I could go through different status checks, I could prepare, I could start, I could complete, but that just depends on how you run your shop floor and what information you need. So now I've completed my subassembly, and I'm going to go back to my assembly work cell, and here is our sales order that we entered. And what you're starting to get here is a status of where we are in the lower levels. So we just made that subassembly, and you can see that it's made now. We've got a good quantity of 10. My Kanban is complete. If we opened up our pegging tree, you get that visibility of what's been complete on the lower levels. And I can see that I have one more Kanban that needs completing, and this is our transfer Kanban. This is our component that's a stranger component. And for right now, I'm just going to come straight on this board, and we're going to act like a material handler, and I'm going to complete that transfer. So if you take a look now, we've got all the components we need to make this. We've got our two components. This one, LE component 2, by the way, is under a fixed Kanban. And I've got, if you take a look at our status, I can see I have one full Kanban and two empty Kanbans at my line side. These represent bins with a fixed quantity inside each one. So we're good to go. We've got all the components we need. I can do some things here again, like I could take a look at production instructions. I could print some paperwork if I need to, if that follows your process. But for now, I'm just going to go ahead and where we could start this and we could complete this. And so what we've done, if we go back to our sales order, is we have produced every level of this material, and we've now got a finished good sitting in stock and a status of completed, ready for shipment. So again, what you see is the linking of customer service to production. Within production, you have an immense ability to mix and match different types of Kanbans, different types of event triggers, all matching how you work on the shop floor depending on who you are. One of the other things I kind of want to touch on, which is pretty unique about Rochester Gauges and how we implemented there, was that Rochester took their leaps cell at a time. So as Bill said, they started with the cell that had to reduce the lead time for that customer from 8 weeks to 4 weeks. And what they did was they actually focused just on that cell and left the other cells alone. And that's where you start to talk about a mixed mode planning and execution. And that is completely possible in AX. And what it gave Rochester was a pretty smooth implementation. So we focused on one cell, we got them live, we figured out all the processes, trained the people, trained customer service, etc. And then as it made sense, moved to the next cells, step at a time, incrementally. And as one cell was on a Kanban strategy or an event Kanban strategy, the other cells were using traditional production. So this, if nothing else, from what you take away today, AX is a very flexible solution. It's meant to support your processes, whatever they are per work cell, per value stream, per factory. So I'm going to go ahead and we'll take it up for questions, and we'll continue on to our last piece.
You know, we could have picked several topic areas to talk about, but we had to reduce this down to a time frame that you guys would stay with us. One of the other major benefits that we got out of going to this software and redesigning our warehousing operation was it used to take us up to 9 days to pick the parts to get them to the line. You can imagine the amount of confusion that would cause by having to schedule the line at least 9 days out in order to get the parts over to it. That obviously was not going to work in a lean environment. And so we had to think of a way of how we could get that picking time from 9 days down to something that would more support the lines. And we went through several ways of doing that. First of all, you have to set your Kanbans up out on the lines. So the parts that you use on a regular basis need to be scheduled right there in a two-bin system on the line. And that's what we did. We went to a two-bin system. So the pickers then only have to pick the unusual items that are coming out to the lines in order to be able to support the lines. And so that's what we did. And then we brought water spiders or material handlers into the situation to where when the item is picked in the warehouse, the water spider or the material delivery person has a route that he goes on. He goes on that route every hour, and he delivers to the line what they need as indicated coming out of AX. What are the products or what are the raw materials or sub-assemblies that they need, and delivers those non-Kanban ones to the line on an hourly basis. This hugely improved our process of being able to schedule our manufacturing floor, because now we can rely on when we have something scheduled. As Charlotte just showed you, we have the parts on the floor, they've been picked in time, and they're on the floor ready to be manufactured. When we set this up, we set a two-day time frame for those parts. So the warehouse people have 2 days to get those parts to the line before the line triggers the final assembly. As we smooth this out and get better at it, those 2 days will go down to the day before, and we'll pick those parts and deliver them to the line. And what the software allows us to do is know what parts, when to pick them, when they need to go to the line, and it's just a huge improvement. Our 9 days are down to about an hour. As we go live on AX, we will get that hour down to about 20 minutes. So where it used to take us 9 days to pick an order, we'll pick that order in 20 minutes or less. Okay?
So in AX 2012, what we use to get this material to the line, again, are called Withdrawal Kanbans. And Withdrawal Kanbans, basically the process for replenishing these are the same no matter what your replenishment strategy is. So whether it's a fixed Kanban like the two-bin system that Bill has that's supplying his line for common parts, or whether it's those stranger components that are needed for a unique assembly that's being made, the signals occur in AX either off of an event or the empty of a bin. They present themselves on what's called the Kanban transfer board. In Rochester's scenario, what they would then do is use the board and the different filters on the board to plan their milk run. So for example, if I know I'm going to go replenish cell 1, I could filter by cell 1, get all the material that I need to deliver to them. I could print some tickets if I want to, but then I go ahead and I move it where it needs to be moved. So it's a pretty flexible tool, and I'm going to take you through an example in AX now. Okay. All I'm doing here is I'm going to put in a couple more sales orders to get a little more realistic scenario. Good deal. Okay. So in AX, I'm going to open up the Kanban board for transfer jobs. It plays nicely. So again, as those signals, either emptying of bins that are common components that are stored at the line side, or if they're stranger components that are just made to order, they show up on this Kanban board for transfer jobs, and that's what you see. One of the things that we did at Rochester was, and Bill kind of alluded to this, they tried to figure out how to increase the speed of delivery of their materials, their raw materials to the line. And what we did was we classified their components into runners, repeaters, and straighters. And the runners and the repeaters we put on 2-bin systems, 3-bin systems in AX. So what you see as a 2-bin and a 3-bin system is this LE common component 2. And it's a 2-bin, actually it's a 3-bin system with 10 pieces in each bin. And I can see that 2 of those bins are empty. And if I take a look at my board over here, one of those bins is full. And what happens in this scenario is literally the line side would scan a ticket, a physical ticket that's sitting on a bin, or even just a barcode on the bin to designate that that bin is empty. And it would send a signal, just as you see here, for the stockroom or the material handlers to replenish that signal. And as Bill said, you know, these are what gets transacted first throughout the day, so that we've got enough stock sitting on the line side that the material handlers are dealing with the stranger components. So a stranger component is this LE component 1, and you can really see that you can tell the difference here because the quantities are for the unique quantities of that job. So again, this is an event Kanban. It is not a fixed quantity Kanban, and the event that actually triggered this was that original sales order that we entered. So it trickled all the way through the BOM, found all the stranger components that are needed to bring to the cell, and it sent a signal right here to the stockroom to bring those components to the line side. And when I talked about milk runs, one of the possibilities you have in AX are to use your filtering options up here. So what I'm filtered on is really from the stockroom to a line side. So you could think and imagine of all your work cells and all the line side warehouses you have, and you could use this screen to filter by the runs that you're about to do. So I'm only going to replenish my assembly work cell, but I could expand this and I could maybe take it to 3 or 4 work cells. It just depends on how you want to plan your work. I could come here and I could make sure I've got all the material I need, and what you'll see as I start to highlight my Kanbans is that my picking list is actually growing in the bottom pane, and I can take a look and make sure I have enough material to replenish all these signals in the stockroom, and I do because I have a pretty green checkbox. If I didn't have material, I'd have an ugly red X. So I can see I have enough of the material that I need. I could do some things like print Kanban tickets, print paperwork to go and pull the material. But the simplest thing, whoops, but if we started to process these in AX, I could come here and I could start the transfer, and it's literally started. If you looked at any of your boards, you'd see that the material has been picked out of the stockroom, and then once I deliver it, I could complete that material. And what that's done in AX in this example is it's filled a bin, it's moved the material in AX in the on-hand screen to the line side, and the world is good. The same exact process goes for my stranger component, my LE component 1. I need 7, I go pick 7, I could start, and I could complete. And as soon as I can complete that, that work cell sees that the status of their material is complete, it's been replenished, it should be sitting right there to make that feeder cell. So I hope I gave you a little bit of a view as to the tools to manage a lot of these movements. And this is one of the, again, like Bill said, one of the most important pieces of this is to obviously get the material in a timely fashion to the work cell to go ahead and make it. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and we will open it back up to questions. And Bill, if you have any comments, go for it.
You can ask Bill any question.
Let me make a comment while we're waiting to see if some questions come in. And that comment is, as I mentioned, over the course of my career, I have put in probably every major software package in a variety of companies. MAPIX, BPIX, Lawson, J.D. Edwards, SAP. There's probably not one out there that I haven't put in. Right now, we're in the process of bringing AX12 up. So we've been out testing it and running it through our conference room pilot, and it will come up live within the next 60 days. I was asked at a conference not very long ago how I would go about selecting a software package. And here was my answer, and I truly believe this. If you are a manufacturing company, I can't speak to retail because I've never worked in retail, but if you are a manufacturing company and you're starting to put the basis of lean into your company and you want a software package that will support that, AX is the only company out there, and I wouldn't even go through an evaluation. I would just bring them up. Because the frustrating part that I have had over my career is having software packages that don't support lean, and you're spending all of your time trying to get the packages to work correctly, and they never will. So a very strong endorsement. Microsoft has done a fabulous job of understanding what lean is and incorporating it directly into their mainline package.
Okay, great. Let's move to the next slide then, Charlotte. The idea is that eBECS, the partner, is able to have these kinds of conversations with you around your manufacturing processes as you transition from, let's call it, traditional manufacturing and the push process to more of a lean pull process. People like Charlotte, our consultants, have the ability to have those conversations with you, so they're not just deploying software, they add a whole lot more value than that. And so we can actually help to coach you a little bit on incremental change, because every one of our customers is moving. They're a moving target. We're not putting something in that stays static very long, but they're moving items from, being manufactured on, like I mentioned, more of a traditional, push kind of process. They're moving those items toward a lean pull process, and so that happens all the time. And so not only do we come in and help you with this, deploy the software, but we're also working with you to, dialogue through how to make that happen. So those are some of the things that we can do to help. So like I mentioned, next step, if you're interested, and I'll circle back with each of you, will be, if you'd like, we'd do a conference call discovery where we'd sit down, and it takes about 60 minutes or so with your lean team. And what we're looking to do is to find out where you are in your journey, see how much transformation you've gone through, see what kind of processes have resulted on the manufacturing floor that need to be supported, that probably will not be supported by traditional ERP. And then what we would do from there would be, if you'd want, we'd come back and do a one-to-one demonstration where Charlotte or somebody like Charlotte would take you through a demo similar to what you've just seen, but it would be specific to the processes that you've already deployed. So like I mentioned, I'll circle back with you. I'm assuming that there aren't any other questions, so I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank Bill Battershell. Bill, thank you very much for being part of this. I know you took a lot of time out of your day, and you probably had some better things to do, more demanding things to do than this, but we really appreciate your sharing your story with all of our attendees. So thanks very much, Bill.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
And Charlotte, thank you very much. And if there are no more questions, I will call the meeting to adjourn. Great. Well, thank you very, very much for attending, and we'll look forward to following up with you next week. Take care, everybody.